welcome back to another Doctor Who product review. Today we'll take a look at one of the most recent merchandise releases, which is of course the 13th Doctor 10-inch adventure doll, as released by Character Options. Now the recommended retail for this product is around £19.99, however I do know that a few retailers are throwing on a few pounds here and there, so basically shop around and you will be able to find it available on Amazon, on the Character Options website online, and also in stores such as Forbidden Planet, Argos, and I do believe also The Entertainer later this year. So this release is really exciting for obvious reasons, because it is the first ever action figure of our first ever female Doctor, as portrayed by Jodie Whittaker, who will be making her debut later this year in Doctor Who Series 11, and was released alongside the Jodie Whittaker sonic screwdriver as well, that I have previously reviewed on this channel. So yeah, if you are interested about this product, then definitely go and check out the review. Much like with the Jodie Whittaker sonic screwdriver, we do have the brand new packaging design that is being displayed on this figure as well, as it is an adventure doll, so this means there is a completely different box, because we've not seen the Doctor Who dolls for many years now, so it is a rather unusual choice to make a return, especially for the first ever figure of the 13th Doctor, but hey, let's go with it, it's a new era. Very front of the box we do have this rather nice and clear window which displays the figure on the inside quite well, and then we also have the sonic screwdriver in the top hand corner there, along with a rather nice silhouette of the TARDIS around the outside, and the whole of the plastic bubble is in fact sculpted to look a little bit like the TARDIS roof, which is kind of cool. Very bottom of the box we do have the label, which we do have a rather nice graphic of the TARDIS along the side, along with a wood texture with the Doctor Who logo in the stack format, 5+ with sonic screwdriver, and then the 13th Doctor adventure doll Character Options logo at the very bottom there as well. At the bottom of the box we do have some company information as per usual. On the sides of the box we do have that continuation of the TARDIS design as well, on the pull to open box, and the windows rather nicely displayed. And then on the opposite side we just get a clear window allowing you to see the side of the figure, as well as the Doctor Who logo repeated once again. Back of the box, it is pretty much exactly the same design that we've came to expect with other Doctor Who merchandise. So as you can see at the very top, we do get the logo nicely printed along with that wooden texture once again, and we do get that rather nice graphic of the TARDIS that was also seen on the sonic screwdriver release as well. Production image of the original Jodie doll at the front there with a rather unusual smirk. As you can see, she does look a little bit off there, and then we do also have a little bit of a write-up at the top about the Doctor herself. And on the side of this we do also get a bubble that shows off the new sonic screwdriver. However, unusually, this is in fact the toy version, so I don't know if that is just an advertisement to say the new Sonic is also available, meaning to state that the sonic screwdriver is available inside with this toy as well, because we do have a small plastic version in there to go in the Doctor's hands. Here we have the 13th Doctor out of her box, and I must say I'm actually quite impressed with the result. I think that this figure is a rather nice blend between actual sculpting and fabric clothing, because originally I was quite cautious about the fact that they were re-releasing the dolls once again. Of course, we've not seen them for a very long time from the Character Options line, and I think that they can either look pretty decent or pretty bad, and I think that this one is, as I say, a nice blend between the actual sculpting of the face, and I think that the clothing is definitely a good effort. The packaging that this figure comes in is pretty much a one-way set packaging, so basically once you've opened it you can't put this figure back in and make it look like it has been unopened, which is quite a rarity for Doctor Who merchandise. Normally the majority of the stuff that I review is in fact a product that you can put in and out the box easily, meaning that this product, as I say, is probably more aimed at the younger audience as opposed to the collectors. Starting off at the very bottom of the figure with the plastic boots. Now these are a one solid sculpt piece that are in fact attached to the bottom of the figure. They aren't removable, and you don't have human feet underneath, which have some detail on this. You have a little bit of weathering here and there, a few darker bits of brush stroke to nicely create a little bit of aging on the side of the shoe, and we do also have the stitching lines of where the shoe will be stitched together as well. And it is also nice to see that we have a few sculpted pieces on, such as the row of little holes where the laces will be fixed into the shoe, and we do also have the sculpting of the laces in there as well. And then of course along the bottom of the shoe we do also have the sculpting of a sole, which has been painted in a darker blacky brown colour, and then on the bottom of this we do have a little bit of company information. Now it would have been nice to maybe have a little bit more weathering on those, maybe even a bit of a highlight on the lace just to make them stand out a little bit more, but I do think they're okay. They do have a little bit of texture on them, and then of course at the very top we do have the giant woolly blue socks that Jodie does tend to wear throughout the majority of things that we've seen so far from Series 11. These have once again just been sculpted to peer out the top of the shoe, and they aren't a separate piece, which does make them look a little bit cheap, I must admit, but do kind of nicely complement the trousers above as well. We have the first piece of fabric clothing that is of course the half-mast trousers, so we do have a little bit of exposure of the leg at the bottom, which a few people don't like. I don't really mind, to be honest. I think that it kind of works with her Doctor and maybe makes it look a little bit more feminine as well. So as you can see, the trousers have been sculpted rather well. well, in this kind of light bluish material that is in fact quite a nice shade, to be honest. And I do like the way that we have these actual cuffs of the trousers stitched into the bottom as well. As you can see, these run along the side and end of the trousers nicely. However, we do have a little bit of fraying material underneath as well, which I've seen on a few products, but not all of them, so I think it's a little bit hit and miss. So definitely when you have a look in retailers to see what one you want to buy, check if you have a bit of this material coming out the bottom and then choose a different one, because it is a little bit annoying. Trousers have been made of a rather nice material, do sit on the body quite well, they aren't too baggy, and they do look okay near the top and waist of the figure as well. A Velcro section at the very front there, which can in fact be removed. Don't really know why, but fortunately we don't have any trouser pockets around the side of the figure. I don't know if this is something that is in fact consistent to the trousers seen in the series. If it isn't, it may be nice just to have at least a suggestion of those to make it a little bit more accurate, but still, either way, they look pretty cool. Taking a look at the jumper now, this has been made of a really nice, quite soft material, something of which that is different to the trousers. There isn't really too much detailing going on this, however, it is rather impressively stitched together. As you can see along the top, we do have the neckline that's been rather neatly done, and then the same applies for the bottom as well. It's been rather nicely stitched together. We have the rainbow pattern along the very front there with a various amount of colours that have been printed onto the material. I do believe that this is inaccurate to what is seen once again on the actual costume. However, if you are expecting something a little bit different that is more accurate, then go for a higher end doll, because definitely get it right. But that said, you can still get what it's meant to be. It is a suggestion of the rainbow, so at least they've actually put it on. Sides of the jumper, we do also have the addition of the braces, which is a really nice little feature similar to the 11th Doctor doll. This has just been achieved by using a yellowy golden piece of ribbon that is attached to the top end of the trousers and then does also run around to the back as well, which is quite nice and a good attention to detail. I'm rather impressed with this. Taking off the overcoat does give a nice alternative display option. As you can see, it nicely shows off the rainbow jumper, but also at the same time gives a little bit more exposure to the white t-shirt piece underneath, which for the sake of simplicity on this figure has in fact simply just been stitched onto the black jumper, which in the actual TV show, this is in fact a white t-shirt underneath the jumper itself, so it is two separate pieces of clothing. Generally, it still looks pretty cool. It's nice to have this as an option, as it's something that we wouldn't get with the 5.5 series of figures. Once the overcoat is off, also taking a look at the back of the figure, as you can see, the rainbow pattern on the black jumper does in fact run all the way around to the back, and this also does give a better look at the back of the braces as well. As you can see, the yellowy golden ribbon does continue to lead to a black piece of ribbon that runs all the way down the spine of the figure as well. And it is quite a similar compliment to the front, where I actually think that the stitching is quite impressive for this figure. I think that it is quite neat, especially the way that they've managed to stitch around the neckline, and also the way that they've managed to stitch the different pieces of material together between the black and the white. Now moving on to the blue-grey overcoat of the figure, a few people have been debating over what colour this actually is, because so far on merchandise we've got a few different representations, a few more grey than others, a few more blue than others. I guess this is a fairly nice sort of version of what it is. It's kind of a blend between the two, I suppose. As you can see, this has been rather nicely stitched together. However, we do have that issue that every single doll with a large coat has, and it is the fact that it does look rather baggy, as you can see, especially towards the back of the figure, due to the fact the material is quite cheap, as I say once again, and it is a mass-produced product. It can't exactly be helped. A few nice stitching lines towards the side of the figure, and we do also have the suggestion of pockets in there as well, which has been achieved by using a banded material and a slightly darker blue around the side to give a little bit of highlight, and then exactly the same for the opposite side as well. And the arms of the figure, once again, exactly the same colour. However, it is nice to see that we do have this nice band running around the cuff of the coat, once again, much like how the actual coat does within the actual series. And then we do even have the ends of the coat that ends off with a little triangular piece missing, which is a rather nice little attention to detail, and something on which, to be honest, I kind of expected them to miss out. The inside lining of the coat, we don't really have too much to talk about. We just have the darker blue of the design, once again with a few stitching lines here and there. Like the actual coat itself, and on the jumper, we do have that continuation of the rainbow theme, as we do have this rainbow lining running down the inside of the coat as well in this rather nice pinstripe, which is rather well done. I think that is quite neat, and I'm glad that they've actually included this detail. Taking a look at the back of the figure now, nothing really too much to talk about. We just have a series of stitching lines where the material has been stitched together, and then of course at the very bottom we do get the section where the coat divides into two. Now there is a little bit of string actually keeping this together, which you can snip if you so wish to kind of have the coat flowing out in two directions. If you did a little bit of DIY in this and maybe attached a bit of wire running around the inside, you could do some really nice poses with that. And then of course around the very bottom of the coat we get this rather nice blue trim, which continues on for the inside lining. We finish off the overcoat now, we do also have the inclusion of a hood running around the side. Now, I do like the way that this has been stitched together. Once again, it does in fact look rather relaxed, running around the shoulders of the figure. As you can see on the outside, we do have that lighter bluish grey colour nicely once again recreated, and then on the inside we do also have the darker lining as well. The big question is, it is of course a hood, and does it actually work as a hood? And I can in fact reveal it does work as a hood, which once again, if you do take a little bit of posing with this, you can in fact do some really nice poses of Jodie actually lifting off the hood, maybe recreating a few of the scenes from that introduction trailer that we've seen over a year ago now. But the use of the hood as an actual hood is a really nice display option, and does give the choice for a few alternative poses when on display, and it is quite unusual yet nice to see a Doctor wearing a hood, as I don't think we've ever had a version of the Doctor that actually utilises a hood in the actual series. I know that the 12th Doctor had his hoodie, but he never in fact used the hood as an actual hood. So yeah, at least we now have a Doctor that knows how to use a hood properly, and I think that she looks quite cool doing so. One of the hands has been sculpted in your standard doctorly position in order to be posed with the sonic screwdriver, and once again we just have a standard skin tone paint app on these. The opposite hand has been sculpted to be a little bit more exciting, with the fingers and thumbs rather nicely spread, with a little bit of detail of creasing in the skin here and there as well as the addition of the sculpting of the fingernails at the very top, which is rather nice and makes the figure look dramatic. And due to this being a cheaper end figure, once again, there isn't any choice to have swappable hands or anything like that. Which finally, for detail, taking a look at that likeness of Jodie Whittaker, I actually think that Character Options have done a really good job on this. I think that this is a good example of a figure that has started off with a good sculpt and then also had pretty decent facial paint application over the top as well, because in the past with Character Options action figures, we've had pretty decent sculpts. However, the paint application over the top is something that has let it down, making it look rather blotchy and rather simplistic. I think that with the likeness of this figure, they have kind of gone for a simplistic effect. I think that the way that has been painted on does make it look kind of cartoony to an extent, but also at the same time a little bit simplistic as well. I still think that for the first Jodie sculpt from Character Options, this is in fact a really good one to start on, and I'm looking forward to see more Jodie Whittaker merchandise in the future to see if this high consistency continues. Taking a slightly closer look at the facial features, starting off with the eyes, I think that these have been rather nicely done, but once again are quite simplistic. So we do have the white around the background of the eyes, and then we do also have the lighter brown in the very middle of the iris. And I do really like the way that we have the detail of the pupil, and also the slight glimmer of white coming off to the side to make it look a little bit like a reflection or something like that, making the eyes look a little bit glossy and natural, which is quite cool. Eyebrows are quite simplistically done. As you can see, both of them have been recreated very simply by using a big black line on either side of the top half of the eye socket, which is quite cool, kind of representative of Jodie Whittaker's eyebrows. I think there's nothing really much to say about those. And towards the lower half of the face, we do also have the paint application on the lips. For some reason, they've kind of gone with a rather peachy colour. To start off with, I think that the actual sculpting of these are rather impressive. They do look rather natural, not too over the top. I think it does look a little bit better as opposed to, say, bright pink lips or bright red lips, which is something that you do tend to see quite a lot on dolls. I think that this is a rather natural skin tone and doesn't really stand out too much, which is rather good. The side profile of the figure, we do get a rather nice attention to detail with the different areas of the ear, rather nicely sculpted, once again in the same natural skin tone paint app. And we do also have the brief detailing of the earring coming down the side from the top half of the ear, running down to the lower half of the chin, nicely connecting these two together, which is a rather nice brief detail, nothing too sharp. However, it's still nice that they have been included. Fortunately, on the lower neck section on the side of my figure, there is a little bit of a scuff mark on the plastic, which is something that I have seen on a few people's figures so far, which I'm guessing is something that comes from turning the head from side to side, which sadly on this figure is a little bit of a struggle, which I will mention a little bit later on when we get onto the articulation. Not really too much to say about the hair. It is pretty much one standard sculpt. However, we do have a separate sculpt coming down the side to represent the flick that Jodie Whittaker has, and it has all been sculpted and painted in a rather nice blondie yellow colour. Unfortunately, on camera, this does look a lot more brighter than it actually is. To the human eye, it is a little bit more paler and a little bit more natural. And taking a look at the opposite side, once again, exactly the same detail with the different strands of hair, really nicely creating a lot of depth. To finish off for detail of the head, we do also have the addition of a paint tap running along the top of the hair of the figure to represent Jodie Whittaker's roots that has been achieved with a darker brown paint tap, which is a really nice attention to detail, something which that I didn't really expect, and something that is normally absent from the cheaper dolls. So it is nice to see that this has been included to make the figure look a little bit more detailed and accurate. Going on to articulation, this figure in fact has a surprising amount. I was expecting a lot less and I thought they would be a lot more simplistic. However, they've done quite a lot, to be honest. Yeah, well done character for that. Taking a look at the very top to start off with, we have a ball joint on the head, meaning that it can move up and down, and also towards the side as well. However, unfortunately, it is incredibly stiff, and I don't recommend doing that in order to avoid those paint scratches that I was talking about a little bit earlier on. Do also have the ab crunch in there as well, meaning that she can move from side to side. However, we do have that lovely click in there as well, which doesn't really sound very pleasant. Don't really know why it's doing that. We do also have the ball joint at the arms as well, move out at the elbow, 360 at the wrist, and also the ball joint, meaning that it can move up and down as well, the same on the opposite arm. Obviously, the T-crotch joint, meaning that the legs can kick out and move all the way towards the back as well. And then at the knee of the figure, we do also have the knee joint, which means it can move to 90 and then go all the way back to 180 as well. These are in fact rather weak, meaning that it is quite hard to support the whole figure if you want to go with a really dynamic pose, as I've actually struggled throughout doing so in this review. So yeah, it is a quite simplistic pose figure, unfortunately, due to the legs being, as I say, rather weak, as you can see. Shot for articulation, we do also have the 360 boot in there as well. The figure does come with one accessory, as it says many times on the box, and it is of course the brand new edition of the sonic screwdriver. Now this is a very basic sculpt, as you can see, hasn't even got any paint apps, which is a little bit unfortunate. If you are talented with paint, it might be nice to add on a few orange dots here and there just to make it look a little bit more alive, but I suppose the sculpt is quite nice and it does fit into the figure's hand, and it is rather curved as well, much like how it is in the actual series. But yeah, it would have been nice just to have a bit more detail on that to make it look a little bit more impressive, because this is rather cheap looking. We have Jodie Whittaker wielding her new version of sonic screwdriver, which is nice. I would have been really disappointed if she didn't come with it. However, it is kind of a shame that she can't really point the sonic screwdriver in an actual direction. Instead, she's kind of just holding it like this, which is a little bit unusual. But hey, it'll be nice to add a few more accessories for her to hold, maybe once Series 11 airs. But for now, she looks pretty cool. In a comparison to one of the previous character options 10-inch Doctor Who dolls to be released, to be quite honest, at this point in the review, I would actually say that the Jodie Whittaker figure is pretty decent, really. The tailoring is absolutely superb for the actual price, and the likeness to Jodie Whittaker is also really decent, especially when compared to the 11th Doctor version that was released a few years ago, which, to be quite honest, I've never realised up until this exact moment how terrible and absurd that figure actually is. The tailoring's appalling, the likeness is pretty decent, however the paint taps over the top are for some reason oddly orange and just look a little bit off, and it just looks a little bit cheap, to be honest, especially compared to the fact that this 13th Doctor figure, I do believe, is exactly the same price to what that figure originally was. So yeah, I think that they've done a really good job with the Jodie doll, and to be quite honest, it is a vast improvement on their previous releases. So yeah, well done character, you've actually created a decent looking doll figure, as opposed to whatever on earth that is. But finally, just to end off this review for a little bit of fun, because I know a few people were wondering how the 13th Doctor runs alongside the Big Chief 1/6 scale new series Doctors, I think that she fits in okay. I think if anything, it is a nice novelty to finally have a 13th Doctor Jodie Whittaker figure in the collection that can kind of be displayed along with the other new series Doctors. However, she is of course quite a few centimetres shorter than all of the others. I know that she is a shorter actress, however I think that this is taking a little bit shorter to an extreme level. She doesn't really fit in scale wise whatsoever. However, it is still nice to have her in the collection to some extent, and I suppose if you want a Big Chief 13th Doctor, then just wait, because no doubt there will be one coming at some point in the near future, which will definitely be worth the wait. Something to note is if you can't actually wait that long until Big Chief release an actual 13th Doctor figure, then with a little bit of camera trickery and different angles, you can in fact make this figure kind of look in scale with the others. So overall, for the Doctor Who Series 11 13th Doctor Character Options 10-inch Adventure Doll, I must admit I am pleasantly surprised about how this figure has actually came about, because this is a major step up from the previous Character Options doll releases that I've seen. I must admit, when I first found out that Character Options were going to be doing a doll that comprised of actual plastic sculpting and fabric tailored clothing, I was initially really worried, because I've seen Character Options previous releases of the 11th Doctor that was released a few years ago, and the original 2006 and 2007 doll line. All of them look incredibly cheap. The tailoring on the costumes aren't exactly very good, and they don't really look worth the money. However, this figure is a major step up from those. I think that the tailoring on the costume is in fact really impressive for a mass-produced product. I love the way that they put the rainbow on the jumper and also the inside lining of the coat, and generally I think that the clothing actually fits the body of the figure pretty well. My only issue with the clothing itself is probably the fact that the overcoat does look a little bit baggy. However, I think that that can't be helped considering the material that it is made from. It's also been nice to see a few revisions to the action figure body underneath, because to start with, we have that rather ugly looking neckline that does take place just below the head where it connects to the body, which is something that can't really be helped, because if you want an action figure with a posable head, then you kind of have to have that neckline in there. But it may be nice to be able to hide it some way a little bit better than this. And also on the lower half of the body, the knee joints are really weak and they don't really support the figure whatsoever. If you want a pose that is even slightly dynamic, the likelihood of the knees giving away is incredibly high. Even right now, I'm actually quite shocked to see this figure actually standing up. The shame about the sonic screwdriver and the fact that it isn't painted whatsoever. It would have been nice to have a few paint apps on there, because that is sheer laziness, to be honest, but I don't really mind too much. It is only a minor little issue. And as for the likeness of the actual head, I think that it looks brilliant. It looks just like Jodie Whittaker. I think that the paint application is really good, and also the sculpt, the actual base, is really good as well. And I think that if this was to be incorporated into a 5.5 action figure, then we are also going to be looking forward to a very decent release in that line as well. So yeah, this is a very good debut of the 13th Doctor in the Character Options scale, and I hope that this is just the start of more decent figures in the future. If you are an older collector that is looking for a product with more precise tailoring and a more accurate paint job to look like Jodie Whittaker, then definitely a product from Big Chief is more up your market for around £200. So this is definitely a product more for the younger audience and the people that generally just want a 13th Doctor in their collection, as opposed to somebody who literally wants a best of the best product of the 13th Doctor. So overall, a really nice addition to the collection, and I hope that there'll be more 13th Doctor merch coming out in the near future. And to be honest, this review and the 13th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver review have almost hyped me a little bit more for Series 11. So yeah, I can't wait to see what else is in fact come round the corner. So thank you very much for watching this review. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions about this release, then please do leave them in the description below, and I will reply to them at some point in the near future. And I guess I will see you in more Doctor Who product reviews at some point in the near future as well. So thanks for watching, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.